Alright. Now check this shit out. Go ahead and get your damn phone out, pull up Google search engine, do whatever the fuck it is you gotta do. Now look, I'm no rocket scientist, but, I mean, it appears the rocket scientists ain't even rocket scientists because the science of their rockets just ain't rocketing, now is it? Alright, so look, where we're at in our Earth's atmosphere, where we breathe at, where all of our shit comes from, we have oxygen as an element. And if you need help searching through this stuff, just look at the atomic numbers of our elements. Anyway, where we breathe at, it is like 20-something% oxygen, like 70-something% nitrogen, and less than 1% argon. Argon, I think that's how you say it. Argon. Nowhere is there hydrogen. And don't be like, oh, no, there's water in the ocean. That's not hydrogen. That's hydrogen and oxygen mixed together. Now listen to this. Now, in the vacuum of space, where we cannot breathe, there is not oxygen. But most of space vacuum, as we know, is made up of helium and hydrogen. Yeah, but oh, wait a minute. There ain't no water in space. Yeah, well, that's debatable. But here's what I'm saying. Look at the SpaceX explosion the other day. Where's all the fire from the explosion? Why does the big explosion from it look like a precipitation cloud that's holding water? Maybe because as the rocket was its propulsion was going up towards the Van Allen belt or whatever is blocking the way, obviously. What if it dragged oxygen up there and the oxygen met with the hydrogen and made precipitation clouds that hold water? Well, I'll be damned. Literally damned. Something stopping the water. But when the oxygen met the hydrogen and made H2O, maybe it made water. H2O? That is insanity. But holy shit, that is interesting to think about. Because go back and watch. Now look at the pattern of the takeoff, the smoke and stuff that is underneath the shuttle. Now look at the pattern when it explodes. It's the same pattern. You know how people's like, well, look at these air bubbles that are, look at these bubbles that are on the camera while they're in space. This proves they're in a swimming pool. What if they're not in a swimming pool? What if it's a reverse bubble of what the hell you know? If there's oxygen in the things that they're floating around in, there's bound to be little bubbles come through, right? Well, if the hydrogen leaked through to the inside of the space shuttle where the oxygen was, then yeah, it would make a bubble of water, not a bubble of air. Which is why your brain would be confused. You'd be like, oh, wait, what? Wait a minute. You'd be like, this is what you'd be like. You'd be like, well, they must be in water. This must be a green screen or something, and they're actually in the water, and they're face swapping to make it look like they're not underwater, and yada, yada, yada. Because why? Because the bubble of water to your brain still looks like a bubble of air, because the only form of bubble your ass knows about is a bubble of air. Which is why you're confused about the situation. It ain't a bubble of air, it's a bubble of water. Now think about this. What if the moon is acting as a sponge or filter, and there is oxygen trapped inside the moon that will eventually make its way to the surface? If there's oxygen trapped in the moon making its way to the surface, then possibly that could explain why all the craters are damn near the same shape, not the same size. A lot of them are the same size. There's a fuck ton of them. But think about the gravity and think about water being around the moon and bouncing and floating, bouncing and floating. The moon still has gravity. It don't have as much gravity. So if there was, I don't know, 500 small puddles of water, when I say small puddles, I mean ponds, floating around, making its imprint on the moon, that explains the craters! People's like, well, what about the impact of all the craters? What if it's not an impact? What if it's an imprint of liquid on soil that ain't seen fucking liquid in God knows how long. And it's just been bouncing around until an object in motion broke it apart. Because otherwise, I wonder what would happen if you had a bottle of water on the moon and you just cut the bottle open. What would happen? Actually, what would happen? Not what a YouTube video says, like what would actually happen. Okay, so let's say the moon is real. Let's say the physics of how humans move on the moon, let's revolve everything around those movements that we've seen. The moon still has gravity, otherwise people would float away. If I cut open a bottle of water, the glob of water would kind of be like oil and water. It would just slowly fall to the ground and it would sit in a spot until something around it made impact or some sort of fucking solar flare blew or something and either evaporated the water or moved it and made it just bounce around and imprint the same exact imprint all over the moon. Now imagine 1,000 ponds of water doing that at the same time. So if the moon is real and the moon landing is real, now listen, we're theoretically speaking. Don't fucking bite this out and be like, look, he don't know if the moon's real. Shut up. Now let's say it's not real. Okay, if it ain't real, why did you give us very basic physics to figure out and be like, Or, what is the point in lying about it in general? Seriously. Like, what is the point of lying about it? Do you really think anybody else down here? I'm driving a fucking BMW. I can't drive to the fucking moon. If, in fact, it isn't real, that is the worst idea to tell everyone. It was the best thing to tell everyone back in the day when people was churning butter. It is not the best idea now, where people can do their own experiments and people know, physicists and stuff. And physicists smoke pot, then yeah, physicists and pot smoking. I mean, you're talking about everybody's ideas being busted wide open. All right, now let's think about this. Think about this. If you are a believer in God, which I am a believer in God, if you're not, that is totally fine. You are your own person. But me as a believer in God, think about this. Nothing on your body is symmetrically perfect except for your eyeballs, which are a perfect circle or sphere. All right? Up in the sky, there are only circles that we know about. Moon, circle, apparently. Earth, circle, apparently. Sun, circle, kinda, apparently. What is the circle that they added in the sky that implements fear on people who believe in God? If you believe in God, there's nothing in the sky that scares you. None of the circles scare you because you know a sense who put it there. The only other circle in the sky is the UFO. If the story of a UFO and an alien and the illustration of that story is correct, then that goes against God's word. That's the only thing in the sky that's a circle that is against God. If you're going by literature. So if we prove that aliens are not real, then we have absolutely nothing to worry about. Now, is God real? Can I factually tell you with books and words that he's real? I cannot. But I'm not supposed to be able to show you he is or isn't. You're supposed to come to a certain consciousness or understanding of life to where you know that answer without words, which is why no one can persuade anyone to believe in the original God who created wherever the fuck we're at right now. And if they didn't, then who did? Here's what I think happened. I think the God that made this place and made us originally, I think somebody tried to get in his way and they're